You.
Welcome, thank you. We are having an open meeting law, so I'd like to announce that open session public meetings are subject to being videotaped. Your image and voice may and will be recorded. All right, so what I wanted to do tonight, the other selectmen and I, was to get together with June and just talk about some high-level things. So it's certainly not the intent to take the place of the meetings, the informal meetings that you have, and if I caused any problems with that, I so aptly apologize. But what we need from you tonight, your attention, so no more throwing candy, not looking at anyone in particular. All right. Questions, and most of all, your support. All right, so why are we here? Well, we have a few items that we'd like to go over. Our town administrator peeps are here. They've got some slides to share with us, give us an update. The budgets, it's not that budget meeting. It's just a review of budgetary key items, things that you need to be aware of. We'll go over the new and improved performance valuations, and then Chris will wrap it up, talk about the open minute laws, open meeting laws, minutes, and the assignments, the liaison assignments from the Board of Selectmen. All right, so, town administrator people, come on up, come on down. You're the next contestant on the town officer meeting.
Oh, hi everybody, I'm Beth Storrs, I'm one of the co-chairs of the committee. I think I've met a lot of you, and I know a lot of you have gotten an email from me. Just want to bring you up to date on exactly where we are. Did everybody get the copy of the draft special act we sent out a couple weeks ago? You probably looked at it and said, I'm not going to look at this now, I didn't put it back, and it's still sitting there. Totally fine, I understand. All right, so what you all got was sent to the Department of Revenue, Town Council, obviously, Harold McNaughton, his office, Town Council, and we have met with the Select Board to go over it. We have comments back from the Town Council on it so far. We expect to hear from McNaughton's office early next week. The warrant article, well, the key points, I mean, you all, this is a fleshing out of what was presented at town meeting that was approved in terms of the four major areas. We're looking for somebody to be the point person, to be the administrator, to take the load off of you all in many ways, and also off the select board in the areas of administration, of appointments, of budgets, of personnel. And so we took what was approved at town meeting and tried to craft a special act. And then we're working with the lawyers and everybody else to make sure they make it lawyer words, but that it sticks with the principles that we had already all agreed upon. So our goal at this point is to try and shepherd it through this process so it is lawyerable and saying what we want it to say. So we put in the warrant article that was due yesterday, and Mary has draft language for the town meeting. She will get a slightly revised version next week once we finish talking to everybody. Assuming this is approved at town meeting, it gets sent to the state legislature for their approval. As we lead up to the town meeting, once the special language is in place, we're writing a suggested job description, building some marketing collateral, and providing a list of recommendations and bullet points for the select board who will be taking on this project, the Town Management Study Committee. With the passing through of the special act, our work is done here, and so we have outlived our mandate, and this becomes a personnel issue in terms of moving forward on actually hiring somebody. So we will, and we have all kinds of opinions. We've done some research, so we have recommendations we will make to them. And so among those recommendations we are going to ask for, we are going to suggest that we get a recruiting firm in here, not to redo the work we've done, but to take it and run with it. We don't know all the channels for generating candidates for this position. And there is a whole lot of work in terms of getting the word out, collecting materials, communicating with the candidates, setting up screening, working with some sort of a town manager, town administrator hiring committee. We think it should involve certainly representation from town employees. We want representation from the town as well. So all of those things, we're going to make suggestions about all those things and give them to the board. So if you have opinions about those things, the board's going to be the one making those decisions. But I'm not going to ask you if you read the act. Does anyone have questions about what's in the special, what's in the current draft of the special act? We expect this is reasonably close to what will go on. If you have questions, are there general questions about some area you think is covered in there? You trust us entirely. That's really scary. Okay. If you suddenly realize this is a bad idea, you can contact any member of the Town Management Study Committee, or at this point, any member of the Select Board at this point as well. This affects many of you all more immediately than it affects anyone else in town. And so we are very much trying to do what we think is in the best interest of the town, and based on our conversations with you all, what you wanted to have happen. And I'm certainly really proud of the work we've done as a committee. And I hope you guys, will eventually agree with that. I would encourage you to, please read it. It's really only like 5 pages. It's not that bad. So, no questions, no comments?
One comment I would make, Beth, is just that if you haven't read it, there's still an opportunity. I think I'm waiting to Sarah, I'm on the committee as well. And so we're planning to do a public forum on it. We're waiting until the final draft is done and published in the warrant, because then the townspeople will all see it and then have something to react to. So right before our town meeting, we're going to have a public forum in order to, so there will be another opportunity. So if you have specific questions, that will be another opportunity to come and talk about what those are. So.
Thank you, Wayne. I totally forgot about that. Peter.
So I think you guys have done yeoman's work. This is something
that.
At least I recognize that you've done a lot of work, except for Wayne. You've done a lot of good work. This would cost a company a lot of money to hire folks to team up to do what you've done.
We
and do it
just
as thoroughly
discovered
as
a consulting firm that writes special acts for towns.
So I'm going to make a motion to double your pay.
Thanks. Thank you for your support. Did not ask how much I would have gone. So great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Obviously, if there's any more questions, see us, see the board, we'll be off and running. All right. On we go. So, Miss June, you want to come on down to the front?
Not really.
Come on.
You want yours, Jim? I did.
Really?
Uh-huh. I like yours, I just wish you just liked hers.
She liked mine better. She liked hers better.
I shouldn't lie. Amy put pictures.
Wow.
I just dropped it.
All right. I'm okay.
No, I get it.
Oh, wow.
Cool. I have no idea. That's why I picture. Hi, I'm June. I'm your town council. I was really excited to come up here and talk to you guys. Because I thought it'd be really, really cool if we could go over formulas on accounting and stuff. I thought it'd be awesome. Work on some double entries and bookkeeping. So I thought everybody would really like that. Just kidding.
Is that what you do?
I do. Yeah, doesn't it look like what, huh? Yeah, that's what we do all day. Fun. So, I just want to touch base on some things that we've had a couple of problems with that seem to be an ongoing problem over and over. So I'm finding that it would be probably really useful for most departments if they could start using some spreadsheets. Don't care, computerized, manual, whatever works for people, it'd be great. Hopefully, if we could do something like that with most of the departments, it would stop with the duplicate payments, because we seem to get a lot of duplicate payments that come through the office. Sometimes it's because people are paying by the packing slips or shipment slips or something like that. So we always want to try to make sure that we're paying by invoices, because we do have a computer system that when you plug in the invoice number, it tells you that it's a duplicate, so we don't accidentally pay it. Also with the tracking, it would probably be a lot easier to be able to confirm when you've actually made a payment. We're finding a lot of departments happen to pay their bills late, so a lot of times you'll see a outstanding balance on the statement, and people a lot of times just try to pay it again, but you'll be able to find out if you've already paid it. It will also help if you do the spreadsheets in the way that you actually fill out your budget, so that way there it'll make it a lot easier at budget time, so that way there you can just do some total columns and plug it into the budget. It'll also make it easier for us when I send you out the monthly statements to be able to just look at the balances and hopefully everything comes out. If not, I can give you some details. And also, if you can do a separate thing that tracks some vacation, sick time use and things like that. I know a lot of departments now do. Some of them do a very good job of it. As far as payroll goes, with the up-and-coming budget coming too, if you can make sure that you remember that the Personnel Committee has to make the approvals as well as the Finance Committee. You have to have both to be able to pay people the amount that you've asked for. Some departments will get one, but not the other. And also please make sure, hopefully, now that we have a Personnel Committee, that you're actually going to get information back from the Personnel Committee. So as soon as you see that come back, if you have questions, make sure you talk to Personnel.
June, is the Personnel Committee decision binding, or is it a recommendation?
The way that our bylaws work, the Personnel Committee is the one who, they will pretty much, in the past, it was always that they're pretty much just looking at it for rationale. So if you're asking for pay raises and things like that, that it's actually reasonable. So is it final? Yes, we've only had a couple of instances where there was an actual problem with personnel, but to me, it should be up to the department head and personnel to work that out if there's a problem. In the past, there's only been a couple of them. We haven't really done personnel, but I don't know if that answers the question.
What happens if FinCom doesn't approve what personnel?
If you don't have the financing, then you can't pay the person, unfortunately, and that's why, for me, it's very important, as soon as you get your paperwork back from personnel, once you do your reviews, which are due October 1st, and personnel does their approvals or disapprovals, and you get them back as soon as you can. That way, if there is a problem, you can talk to them, and then make sure that you go to Finance Committee, and then take it from there. Because it's very difficult if somebody's given a raise, but Finance Committee doesn't fund it. We seem to be getting a lot more new people in town, new employees. It would be really helpful if we could start following the bylaws on hiring new people, to make sure it actually goes through the proper procedures, and also to make sure that there's funding available before we start offering people jobs, or at least figuring out where we're going to come up with money. The accounting office does need a copy of any type of position changes or pay increases or decreases, just so that way our job is pretty much to make sure that people are being paid what they should be being paid. So, not that we per se care which way it goes, but it's just so that way there, when the auditors come in and they say, why are you paying this person what you're paying, we can say, this is why. But when you start a new hire, it's always good to make sure that we do have what the position is, the start date, their hours that they're going to be paid, and their step and grade. This way here, a lot of times, unfortunately, this little piece of paper could be the only thing when you go to retire that could be in your file. So it's kind of important if you're here that long. And also, please take your time when you're doing payroll, because we're getting lots of mistakes, not pointing any fingers, but we get a lot of mistakes in payroll. Didn't say any names.
What kind of mistakes?
It's just a lot of calculation errors. We've had a couple where, unfortunately, the formulas aren't always correct in the spreadsheets,
Or the rounding, exactly.
or the rounding. And sometimes it's a carryover from the week before. So just to confirm when you're handing it in, saves us time and you time. As far as the expenses go, the auditors are now asking us to ask for W-9s on all vendors, not just new vendors. Reason being, there is, I can't remember the town, but there was a treasurer who was actually making up fictitious companies and submitting bills for those fictitious companies. So that's how a ton of money got lost. So now, this last audit, our auditors pulled vendors and wanted to know what the proof was to make sure they were a real company. And we found most of it is easy to do because you can Google a lot of them. A lot of them have the information out there. But we still occasionally get that little invoice for a company that has a little tiny scrap piece of paper with a name and an address. And to the auditors, that is a little weird.
Unacceptable.
Not totally, but it's getting more and more unacceptable just because just anybody can write an invoice. For service vendors, we also require a certificate of insurance, so sometimes if you submit a bill and somebody calls you looking for a payment, we may be holding it because we're waiting for a copy of the new certificate of insurance if it had expired. Again, when you turn it in a bill schedule, please make sure it's itemized invoices. We will not pay by a statement. We have to see what you're actually buying. We're not allowed to just write out money for the sake of it. We really do need to see what it is that you're actually purchasing to make sure that it's legal and lawful. We would like to see on most invoices, if we can, name, address, a date, and amount. It would be great if they all had invoice numbers, but that's not always the case. I don't know why, but it's not.
Some name of the person that's.
The name of the actual company.
Okay.
We've actually got the invoices in with just an address.
Okay.
Who do I write a check out to? I have no idea. When you're submitting a reimbursement, this one is a little bit hard for some people to understand, but my job is to make sure that we're paying out money that's actually due to somebody. So we need to make sure that we know what you're buying, when you're buying it, and also the amount, and also the proof of payment. We've actually had a case a while ago where somebody put in a receipt and they actually hadn't paid it. And we wound up getting a bill from the actual, I think it was a meeting, or a training, that we actually got a bill after the fact, and the person had actually never paid the bill. So that's why we require the proof of payment to also back it up. We do not pay sales tax. We will cover hotel tax and we will do meal tax. So if you're staying somewhere, those are allowable, but sales tax is not. If you're gonna purchase something, either use a vendor that we've already set up an account with, or you can ask for a tax exempt number. There are a couple of department heads that I would like to see, make sure that you have a vendor list for people, in case people need to buy things. Just so they know who to use, who you normally deal with, so that they can charge and they don't have to pay.
All right, so before we go, are there any questions on this slide? I mean, this is pretty much effective now, kind of like your dry cleaning, no ticky, no shirty, no receipting,
Yeah.
no checking.
And we're returning them now. It's not, we're gonna go looking for it, we're gonna make phone calls, it's gonna be the department head's responsibility to do that, it's not gonna be ours anymore. But it's taking up too much time because we're getting a lot of stuff without any backup.
Is there a time frame to, so we buy something, you push it back to us, is there a time frame that it has to come back to you, where you just shut it off and say you've got 30
If
days,
it's
90
returned, it's
days?
shut off. So if I return something to you, you're gonna have to resubmit it.
Okay,
So we do a warrant every week, so there's really no excuse for it not to be paid and be paid on time, which is another issue.
no questions?
Can you generate a vendor list that most departments do we all use the same vendors? Should we all be using the same
We
vendors?
don't all have the same vendors, it all depends on what you use. You can come in and check, but most departments do not share accounts.
Right.
So if, like, we have accounts with Quill, but every department has their own account, which is pretty much the way it is. Once in a while, we do have really nice department heads that will allow us to share their account if we don't have our own. And then we have to make sure that we pay our own bills, but, yeah. Mileage reimbursement. This one we're still working on. She had a bug. The forms are all online, and the forms need to be out. We're trying to work it, we seem to have a lot more people who are asking for mileage reimbursement. And for us, it would be a lot easier if you use the forms, so that way there we know when you've gone, where you've gone, why you've gone, and either you can do it with odometer or an address. We've had a couple of places where people are just guessing and putting in mileage. It's not gonna cut it anymore. So if you're putting in for mileage and you actually are going somewhere here in town and you put down 23 miles, I have a hard time with that. Trying to figure out where you've been and what route you took, because there's only so many ways you can go. But I do understand, because I myself don't always drive the highways, so sometimes people will go back roads and that's fine. But at least if we can have addresses, we can at least spot check and make sure that mileage is pretty close to where it should be.
Will you kick them back?
Yes. Yes. We kick back a lot of things, and it's not that we're saying you can't do it, it's just a matter of, I need paperwork to back it up, so if the auditors come in and pull that thing, I have a reason why I paid you. It's not my money, it's the taxpayers.
Agreed.
So we've got to make sure that we try to track it as best we can. Some of the financial budgeting tips. Make sure that if you're putting in for a future raise next year, that you've accounted for it. A couple of times we've had people put in for pay raises through personnel, but forget to put it in their budget. Same thing with vacation time. Make sure that if there's an anniversary or an increase for people the following year, you're budgeting. As far as the salary goes, you can do it however you want to do it, but just please remember, if you're a salaried employee, come the end of June, your money is run out. So divide it however you're best going to get paid properly. There is, every once in a while, you'll come up with a 53-week year, based on, because it's not like the real world. Sometimes we'll have 52 weeks, 3 days. So depending on how you budgeted from one year to the next, make sure you're gonna get paid, because once you run out of money, you're done. You don't get that final paycheck possibly if you calculate it wrong.
Anything online people can use that you can point them to, so it's just consistent, so I'm not counting 52 weeks and 3 days and somebody's
When we do
counting,
the budget,
it'll pop
we
up.
actually give you a calendar and we count it for you. So you don't even have to count it, but you do, because a lot of people don't work the same days, so if you work 3 days a week, you have to figure out how many days you're talking about. Yep. And again, the hourly. Make sure that when we hand out the budgets, that you're actually using the days that are there, including holidays. Because we do have some departments that don't necessarily work a holiday, but because of the bylaws, they get paid for the holiday. So that means they have to calculate, which we're gonna work with personnel, because our payroll company does not work with points. 3.2 messes things up, correct? And hours vary from one day to another on some people, because of the way they work. So just make sure when you're doing your budget, you're actually looking at a calendar and figuring out how many hours are in every day that you have to budget for. Yes?
What are they rounded off, 3.5, or do they go 3 straight? How do they?
Well, unfortunately, we have people who work 26 hours, and if you divide that by 4, it doesn't work. So it depends, because we have some people who work 8 hours in one day and 5 hours in another.
So
So
it
for-
goes by a weekly, your hours are weekly, correct?
they are weekly, but you work different out, if you're hourly, you get different hours for different days sometimes. Not everybody, but there's a few.
Okay.
So unfortunately, every single person for us is a little bit different, so it becomes pretty hard for like Dennis, because when doing vacation time, sick time, personal time, things like that, because the auditors a couple of years back requested, which actually I forgot to put this in here, had requested us to start, Dennis, to start tracking vacation time, sick time, personal time through the payroll. It was not, I repeat, it was not to substitute the department head tracking it. It was there to have a check and balance, because we had a couple of employees over the years not agree with their department head. So for us, the only way that we could do that is if we tracked vacation time, sick time on the payroll sheets and actually put it through payroll, so that way there the employee on their pay stub could confirm what they were getting, what was being deducted, and be able to take care of it right away, versus at the end of the year, when somebody thought they had a week left and they had none. So, we're trying, but it's kind of hard, we've got to work, I don't know how, but a lot of departments now don't have even numbers for their hours, so we're working on it, but please try to calculate the best you can. Put in just a little bit extra, doesn't mean you're gonna get it. You're not gonna get it in your paycheck, but it's not a bad idea to have a couple extra bucks in the line item to make sure that we don't have to go for a reserve fund for 23 cents, because it looks horrible. Again, remember, it's not your money, it's the taxpayers' money. So try to use your spreadsheets as much as possible to track all of your budget. Always know what you have in the budget. The budget are also there for a reason. This way here, if you know you have something major that comes up, if, you know, a transmission falls out of a truck or something like that that wasn't foreseen, we get that. But if you just think that because you need to have new desks or you need to have something new in your office, that doesn't mean that just because you have the money you should buy it. So try to keep track of what you're actually budgeting for, because that's what it's actually there for. Make sure that you keep reviewing your budgets on a monthly basis, because we don't like to have surprises, especially not at the end of the year when we're trying to close the books, which I'm still trying to close because we haven't had people tracking stuff. So if we can do that, that would be wonderful. If we can try to avoid transfers whenever possible. The reserve fund is there, but it's supposed to be there for unforeseen and extraordinary situations only. It's not there because you didn't budget properly, or you wanted an extra pair of curtains, or something along those lines. So please try to remember, it's not your money just to do whatever you want.
So what happens in that instance? We decide to buy something slick for the selectmen's room, nice big plasma screen. We don't have the money for it. We give you the bill,
And you don't have the money,
and we don't have the money.
then I kick it back to you and it's your problem. So either you'll have to go for a reserve fund transfer, or you're gonna have to go to town meeting as an unpaid bill.
Jim, who approves of the reserve fund transfer?
The reserve fund transfers technically only have to go to the finance committee, is what it is. In our town, we do a courtesy, so it goes to the selectmen first. They approve it, and then it goes to the finance committee. Most of the reasoning behind that originally was because most of the departments are under the selectmen. So technically, the selectmen should be aware of what the departments are doing. So this way here, they can sign off on it and say, yes, we agree. This is an unforeseen. I look at a reserve fund a little differently than the finance committee does. I'm under the assumption that if you have a problem, if you don't have a ton of extra money in your budget, my office, for one. If we had a problem in our office, my shredder breaks and I need another shredder. At the time, if I need a new printer, I didn't have a printer in my budget. Now, it's elsewhere, but before it wasn't. I actually do not have extra slush money in my budget because I have a smaller budget. So I would actually know at the beginning of the year, I'm gonna run out of money. So for me, in my mind, that's the time I would go to the finance committee and ask for a reserve fund, because I know I'm gonna run out of money. Finance committee doesn't like to do that. They like to wait till you're out of money before they give you money. The only problem with that is that you can continue to spend money however you want. Come the end of the year, you've already spent the money, usually. By the time you go to get the money, so what you just said, normally the purchase has already been made. Versus somebody saying to you,
I won.
you can't spend that money.
Too bad I've already bought it.
Now what are you gonna do? So we're finding, unfortunately, just give money, and we shouldn't look at it that way. We really need to start re-looking at our budgets and the way we're spending money.
So it's not available.
It should not be available. And also, I'm finding, I know everybody's busy, I know nobody likes to do bookkeeping or accounting or any of this, I understand that, I do, I'm aware of it, I get that. But, I would really, really like it if people could pay attention to their expenses and try to get them in on time. We're having a number of departments send through items with late fees and interest charges. I personally don't feel the taxpayers, I don't mean to be rude when I say this, but the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for laziness because somebody's not putting their bill in on time. That's my take on it. Some companies will allow you once or twice to make a phone call and get it waived. Some of them won't. Those we have to pay, we don't have a choice because we can't get around it. But I really, really, really want to stress, try to get your bills in on time so we don't have to deal with this. And from here on out, it's not my problem to try to get your interest fee waived. That's gonna be up to the department head to take care of, so.
Is there some state law guidance on that?
I can't find it that actually says that, because unfortunately, if we're held liable, some of the companies could take us to court on it.
Well, no, but could the department head be held liable for it? That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know the answer to that. But to me, it's a matter of, if you know you have to pay a bill, then you have to get your department together. A lot of it's a single department, one person that has to submit the bill. So for me, this is hard for me to accept as okay to do if it's only one part. We have a couple of departments that only meet once a month, and I get that, but you also need to work with your vendors to make sure they know that, so that that way they're there. A lot of them can waiver it, but you have to be able to be up on it and to call.
So what happens when you get a bill from last year now? I mean, we're in a new fiscal year, the books are kind of sort of closed.
They're closed.
So what do you do?
Now it would be, the bill would be held until the next town meeting. It would have to go on as a unpaid bill.
So it's an unpaid bill where the vendor sits and they're looking for money, potential fees, bad press, etc. Okay.
Say, Jim,
Yes.
just a comment on that reserve fund transfers.
Mhm.
Generally, the finance committee doesn't like them early in the year,
And
because it's
I
only
understand
so
that.
much in the fund.
Yeah,
And rather than spend the fund down early in the year, you know, that is for emergencies. So
mhm.
so a lot of department heads hold it till, let's say, the spring or late winter. And by that time, you may have a second need, or, you know, you may have two things that you want to fund with this reserve fund transfer, rather than going through the process every time for every emergency.
Yeah.
But
And I understand that. My concern is that people find it as just a slush fund. So if they have an expense that's unforeseen, if they were to ask for it earlier, you could say absolutely not. You're gonna have to wait and try to find it in your budget. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Versus if it happens at the very end, now I've already committed to other things, sometimes it's more apt to be passed. So that's my only concern with not letting you know, because the last few years, we've had people who just are spending money, and they're not actually thinking about what their actual budgets are.
yes, and sometimes the reserve fund request, the transfer request is for a certain amount, and we reduce that because it seems a little excessive, and that there's a quote for it, you know, and can you negotiate the price down or something like that? So
Yeah.
every case is different, but in general, we prefer not to spend it all early in the year, in other words.
And I hear what you're saying, but I also feel you need to be involved more towards the beginning versus only seeing you at the last 2 months of the year.
Not the last 2 months, but just not the first 2
But
months.
it's difficult.
either.
It's difficult if you're waiting till the very end to start making sure we've got enough money to cover things, and people haven't been told no. Because we're finding a lot of people are just being told spend, we'll take care of it later.
Oh, is that, oh, I
Yes.
didn't know that.
So that concerns me, because I'm finding now it's a habit. It's, don't worry about it, we'll ask for a reserve fund. And to me, I wanna see people to start to actually realize that a budget is there, just like it is at home, where once you run out of money, you're out of money.
So who's telling them, no, we'll pay for it later?
I don't know, but that's what I'm being told. So when somebody
Oh,
comes
okay.
in with all of these outrageous bills, it's a,
Oh, all right.
we'll take care of it later. So that's why I think you guys need to know more ahead of time versus waiting until the very end and then us having to pay for them, or it's gonna have to go to town meeting. So some final thoughts. Please remember that in June, to be very careful about tracking all the expenses that you incur. This year, right up until last week, I had a prior year bill. So I had to reopen the books and then reclose them, so it didn't have to go to town meeting. So please, towards the end of the year, this year, we actually tried to get out the encumbrance forms a little bit early, so that people would actually have them to remember to start tracking expenses towards the end of the year. I know we're in the new year now, and you're probably gonna forget by next year. But that's the reasoning behind it, is because it makes things really hard for me to close the books on time, which holds up everything else as far as the tax rate goes and things.
Is there a type of penalty? Does that mean you have to open the close?
No, just be whining.
Just hardship, because everything else will slide.
Yeah, because last year we had a problem with it too, and the tax rate went up because I couldn't get the books through, so.
Okay.
Also, please remember to try to get your employees to get their expenses approved before you spend them versus after, so that way your department head makes sure that, or the, I should be saying to this to the department heads, make sure that your employees aren't spending money without your knowledge. I found a couple of departments at the end of the year, their employees had actually spent money that they didn't know about. So, whatever you decide, however it works for you, make sure that your employees know how to or not spend money so that there's some sort of accountability for it. Again, like I said earlier, we're gonna make it now so that the department heads are responsible for fixing any type of problems on invoices. Again, we don't pay sales tax, so before you submit me a bill, you should be looking at it, because you need to, when you're signing your bill schedule, you're signing off that you actually received that item and what you received is correct. And the amounts are correct, so technically, you really should be checking to make sure there's no sales tax on the bills versus me having to send it back to you or me making a phone call to try to get it taken off. The bill schedules, also make sure that the person that's listed on the bill schedule is actually the person being paid. Things like, I don't know, mileage does not help me as to who I'm writing out a check to. So just make sure that whoever is being paid is on the bill schedule. Just a reminder, which Peg will do, is the evaluations for everybody is due October 1st, so we've got a few weeks to do that. And the budget packages will be coming out in the middle of November-ish. I don't know what the plan is to do a budget kickoff or not. I don't know what finance committee is thinking, or selectmen are thinking, or how we want to do it. In the past, we've not done one because nobody showed up.
We have a meeting set up with the selectmen, I think it's October 22nd. It's a Monday night, it's a public meeting, and that's where we go over briefing with the selectmen. Here's where we are this year. We look at COLA, we get some information from the treasurer on borrowings that are coming due. It's just a one-pager, but we go through that for the selectmen to kind of give you a preview of where we stand this year. So that'll be on a Monday in October. I think it's the 22nd set up for.
So maybe when you guys get together, you can decide whether or not you want to do a kickoff, or I just send out budget packages. Because the kickoff is usually where capital planning would talk, where selectmen would talk to say what you want us to do with our budgets, finance committee, what you're thinking to the actual department heads.
Around that mid-November, when the budget package is sent out, we could do a kickoff if that would be helpful, for sure.
That would be up to you.
Well, and
That's
I
the
think the
biggest-
selectmen, we can talk about that when we do that preview.
Okay.
And that might be a good way of reinforcing, we have a letter and some guidelines in that letter, but it might be good to do something like this where we have a kickoff meeting.
That's it?
Nice. I do like that, that was cute. Are there any questions for Ms. June at all on this? Concerns that you have? Is any of this a surprise? Oh, you have a
Just one
question?
more thing, because you mentioned capital planning. Two things actually. One is that the capital planning committee started last year an asset inventory of the town's assets. It's in a draft form right now. I think I sent out something in April, kind of notifying people that that's in the works. So this fall, last night we started working on the asset inventory, which is spreadsheets showing all of our assets in town. So it's not an easy job, but we're tackling it. We had a good meeting last night. So that's coming down the road. It won't be released until the department heads and town officials have looked at it. So that's one of the things. The second thing would be on the budget package, or the capital budget requests. Last year was our first year, so traditionally it was just a 1 year, what do you need this year sort of a request. And last year we asked for 5 years through 2024 of what was needed. And of course, most of them we got were for last year. So we had a very large number that we received last year, more than usual. And we moved some of those things into this year's, and we're expecting to see them in this year's capital budget requests. And now we have 1 year of records, if you will, and so that the idea is that we'll have a 5-year running capital plan. And so this will be the second year. And also, after the requests are submitted, the feedback we got was that we should, again, meet with the department heads. And we're gonna try to coordinate that with the finance committee, and when the department heads come to talk about their operating budget, we'll also talk about those capital requests. And that'll give the department heads and the capital planning committee, it'll be a joint meeting, a time to kind of react to that. We can discuss some of the logic behind it. Last year was basically moving things out of that first year because we just didn't have the money. But this year, some of those things were moved, we're expecting to see those in the capital requests this year. So just to be aware of that, that's going to be some additional coordination for January and February for those meetings with department heads.
If you have different forms you want to use, let me know before November 15th when I send out the packages for. The other thing that we did not do last year, what we had in the past, was send out a 5-year, actually went on I think 20 years at one time, a 5-year plan that goes with the budget package, so that way there people know what you already are aware of and what they need to actually redo.
Yes, we'll have a column of last year's, and we'll have, in parentheses or whatever was requested for the 5 years. In some cases, people did put in for the 5 years. We'll have that on the form, pre-printed. It's an Excel spreadsheet. And last year, most people, even though it was an Excel spreadsheet, they did it by hand and handed it in. But like all of the other forms that we're kind of moving towards a more electronic database. So if it can be done on an Excel spreadsheet, then it would be easy to transmit, easier for us, and department heads would be able to keep that.
If you have it, let me know, because I put all those forms on my webpage, so that way the department can get them if they misplaced them.
Yes, that will be, we do have to do some preparation from last year's information. So it'll be around the 1st of November.
Works for me.
Any other questions? Okay. Anything you want to come up? Want a cookie?
I'm gonna have a cookie.
Love your honesty. Grab a water on the way by too.
Does anybody want water or cookie? Cook said they wanted what color?
What color?
Well, which flavor?
This is a good time. This is a good time to take a break because I have a feeling we're going to generate lots of discussion on this one. What?
Did the same thing.
Oh, there is a sign-in sheet coming around, it's in the front row, so if you could put your John and Jane Hancock on it,
How are you?
we'll appreciate it.
Very good.
Good evening, sir.
No.
Get started again. Obviously, we're aware of the time, we want to make sure that we don't keep you captive here for an ever and ever, is the performance reviews, and then Chris's section is left. So, I don't need to read to you on the screen why we do them. It's pretty much you need to know how your folks are doing, and maybe some areas that they're not doing well in, or acknowledge the areas that they are doing well in. We'll talk about why we're changing them from the previous year's forms, what's different, and what to do going forward. Alright, so, why are we changing it? Honestly, they don't work. The old ones that you had, they don't work. They're, to me, when we looked at them, there were always never enough detail. So some would be a 3, some would be a 4, some would be a 5, all the way down the page. No explanation why. If your person is that good, promote them. If your person, say on the other side, is a 2, explain why. Give them an opportunity to increase their performance. Honestly, when we look through them, there were way too many 5s. Generally, I know in corporate land, is that 70, and I know that the 70% may not exactly apply here because we have a very small population. But generally in corporate America, 70% of your population is a 3. People think, oh my God, I have a 3. But that's bad. A 3 is not bad. A 3 is where everyone should start. And then you go either way. You either go up in your performance or you go down in your performance. Part of the reasons too that we looked at updating the reviews is that there weren't any growth plans or goals for next year. I know that where I work, not only do we get a performance review, but we're expected to put forth goals. So we know what we're working on, either as an organization together or individually. This new version tries to capture that. We need to know how it impacts the budget. So let's say, insert amount here for your cost of living. If you have a true 4 or a true 5, wouldn't you want to give them just a little bit more than maybe who's a 2 or a 3? Don't you think you would need the justification to give somebody a little bit more and a little bit less? This is why we're moving towards a different format this year. And then the bottom, did someone mention training opportunities? No, I can't guarantee they're going to happen because this is where we need to go to finance and say, hey, is there anything we can do in the budget that we're noticing people need, pick a class, communication skills, because they're in front of the public all the time. We want to be sure to give them the skills that they're up there communicating effectively. Maybe it's grant writing, making stuff up here. But we need to be able to show that if you're trying to grade your people and give them an opportunity to grow for next year, that you give them an opportunity to go for training. It keeps people here, it keeps them interested, it keeps them engaged. So let me stop there. Any questions on this? Yes, sir?
When you talk about plans and goals, how does that interact with somebody that may only work for your department 10, 12 hours a week?
And that's part of it, Paul, and that's why we figured this go-round was almost like the guinea pig, was the first test out of the building, to see if these worked, if we needed to maybe revisit them next year. But we felt as a committee that the old ones just weren't there. I mean, you had a comment and you could circle it, and then you had like one line for comments. And I know that my handwriting is atrocious, so I need lots of lines to make comments. So that's an addition to that as well. That's something that we're going to have to tackle. If you only have somebody working 10 hours a week, well, how do you get them training opportunities? Because maybe they're interested in something that if you gave them that opportunity next year, they can. So that's what we're looking at. It's long. Oh, we have questions in the back.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, Charlene DeCalagero, library trustee. So I have gone through the type of personnel review that you just talked about, and giving grades 1 to 5. And I know that, I assume you have said you are looking for detail, which is great. And the details are very important. I have not mostly worked in corporate land, and I will tell you, places I've worked, we hired really well-qualified people. I would say, of our staff, we tend to hire people who are well-qualified, probably qualified above the position. So, and they also love their jobs, and they do a good job in part because of that. So I think to give an arbitrary percentage, also some of these people have been working a long time at their jobs. They know them well, they know the people they serve and all of that stuff. To give an arbitrary percentage and say, well, most of your people, 70% of your people should be a 3, does not take all this other information into account. Qualification when they walked in the door, qualification from having been on the job a long time. We are very fortunate that we are able to keep the people we are able to keep. So I would like to temper the message. This is not the corporate world. People do these jobs for a number of reasons. And I think to give, the majority of our staff 3s would be upsetting for them, and certainly upsetting to the library trustees who have some sense of, we don't supervise directly the staff, we only supervise the library director. But we have some sense of what our staff does, and they often go above and beyond, and that's been my experience. So I just, if you're gonna look at that percentage and not look at all of this other information, I would say, I know I would be pushing back.
And that's fine, and that's certainly not to say that we're going to put all these together and tick them off in a box and go, oh my God, we're not in the 70th percentile, we're in the 60s, so guess what? You come down, you go up, you go up. That was just to say, overall, 70%, and again, it's in a large organization where you have hundreds of people, it's very easy to put people into that 3 spot because they are meeting all the expectations of the job. And maybe they do have their overall shining moments, a day or 2 here or there, but it's not consistent. That would be a 4. Your 5 is, oh my God, never leave me because I would be lost without you. So again, it's just an idea. We want to get a better gauge for the folks that are giving these reviews to really give the feedback to their folks that apply. So that's great at the end of the day. You say, hey, you're a 4. That's awesome. What does that mean? Well, here's an example where you went, this is great. Ooh, but you know what? I've also noticed that here's an opportunity for you to work on, totally in your control. Here's what I've observed. Oh, that's fabulous, thank you. I think that people generally look for feedback in their job because everybody does a bang-up job here in this town, and I think that we're extremely fortunate to have the people here that we have. Obviously Berlin's growing. We're probably going to get a little bit bigger, maybe a lot bigger. But again, this is just an opportunity to say, let's try something different. Let's try something new. Let's see how it works this year. And then this time next year, I'm probably standing back up here again and going, dear God, what was I thinking? Scratch, scratch, scratch. Here's version 2, let's roll this one out. So again, I don't know the folks that support you at the library. I don't know the folks that support you in accounting. So we're relying on you, that when you turn these in, that you've given great thought to everybody to say, I'm a, because of, and because of, you're a, therefore you should get it. So that's the only thought process behind that. Does that help? I know, you're reserving comment. It's good.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know what, I'm not
I
married to
can
it,
say
it's
I
just something different.
personally have experienced this kind of evaluation process. And I think it tended, I believe in evaluation. I'm not saying I don't. Evaluation and giving feedback and all of that stuff. And as a practical matter, I would say probably most supervisors, if they're at all good, are doing that on an ongoing basis. They're not waiting for once a year. And I just, what I don't want to do is lose good people
Correct.
and hurt morale,
Mhm.
because we can't afford it. It's really disastrous to lose people. It's very expensive to lose people. So we should be thoughtful and tentative in terms of how we do this and listen very carefully to the feedback from the people who work for the town.
Agreed, agreed. As I said, you know your people best. You're gonna be able to give them the feedback that they want. And as you said, I hope that they've been giving it all along. The last thing that you wanna do is say, hey, it's performance time, you're horrible. Thanks for letting me know. You know, what am I supposed to do about that? So no, we may be on version 2, we may be on version 10 by this time next year. But thought it was an opportunity to get in and try something different. Again, especially for folks that maybe aren't performing well. You give them opportunities, maybe you suggest training to help them. So it's definitely a partnership that we have here. And again, when you do your rating number, whatever it is, 1 through 5, could you please provide detail? It's kind of like June. You don't turn in a receipt, you don't get paid. It would be really nice to see the information behind the rating number that you give. And yes, it's long, I admit it. I will, stop smiling at me, Eloise, from the back. I know it's long.
It's not 16 pages though, so.
That's right, it's not 16 pages, I whittled it down. Yes, ma'am.
It's just hard to take it seriously when we're in an office of one employee.
I know. I know.
I mean, if he was a 3, he couldn't work there.
Correct. No, and I agree. I mean, it's long because there's more detail in it.
Peg, this is not applicable to the committees and boards.
Oh, yeah, you're thinking.
As long as I get a raise if I get a good review.
See, that's the other question.
And true, and that is a valid question. What about the volunteer opportunities? You know, do you give them a review?
Well, not even so
No,
much the
because they're
volunteers, I mean, the employees.
Giving them time.
You're giving them a good review, but you can't.
Question in the back?
So your volunteers, if they're good, you reappoint them. If they're not, you
Don't.
find somebody else.
There you go.
Agreed. Yes, ma'am.
I just think that a performance appraisal is the one for them to have good communications with their employees. But you also don't want to make it a narrative
No.
that everyone's pulling their hair out because they don't know if they use the right word or not. So
There is a
line
fine
there,
line.
especially with
Yeah,
how
I-
small the town is.
Yeah, and I don't want a book, dear God, I don't want a book. You know what, but if you can say, turns reports in on time, has effective communication, great relationship with vendors, you know, those are like the key quick hits that if you look at, you can go, dang, they really are great, you know, because of all this. So no, I don't want well, I'd like to review Dennis because he's been here for 8,000 years and he's been doing it. No, just give me the highlights of what's good around that. So again, if you're a manager, what I'd like for you to do is to have your employee complete a review. Now, because to me, again, you go back to that, hey, we've been working together a year and you're horrible. Well, geez, I don't think I'm horrible, I think I'm a rock star. Well, okay, well, I think you're horrible. So you need to make sure, again, this goes back to open communication throughout the entire year. Are you talking to your folks? You never want that disconnect. It is a huge shock as a manager when you have to say, no, I think that you're a 2, And the person says, but why? I come to work on time, and I leave on time, and I take my lunch break, so I'm a 5. It's like, no, you need to have that type of communication, that give and take back with your employee. Set a specific time to do the review. It's busy, and it's getting busy, and it's gonna get busier. And the last thing that you wanna do at 5 on a Friday is be like, oh, hey, I need to do your review, you got a sec? Take some time, put the effort into it. Make sure that you're somewhere where you can have that discussion, where you're not going to get interrupted, where somebody keeps coming in. You want your employee to know that you're listening to them, you're hearing them, you value them, you're engaging with them. Stick to the facts. You know, don't generalize. Does a great job. What does that mean? I don't know. Does a great job because she provided specific information, did a troubleshooting exercise where she saved the town $300 million. Well, that's specific. That's what you kind of want to get towards. So just the facts, ma'am. Anybody recognize where that quote comes from? There you go.
Perry Mason?
There you go, yeah, Perry Mason.
No,
All right.
it was Dick Tracy.
So are there any questions about that? Personnel committee, and we'll help them, the selectmen will help them. We'll get the forms out to you so that you can start to fill the information out, so that you can start to have these discussions with your folks. If something doesn't make sense on the form, come see us, drop us an email, pop up on Monday, grab Mary, she'll get a hold of us, we'll get back in touch with you. Again, it's not an exercise to sit there and pull your hair out and be like, oh my God, what are they making us do? It's just a different way to help communicate and to make sure that we keep the folks that we have engaged with us and make sure that they want to stay and they want to grow and to give them opportunities to do so. Questions? I expected to get beat up a lot more up here. Nothing? Mr. Bradley?
Which one? Okay. Did a lot of the managers write comments or leave it blank and just circle the numbers when the ones that you've seen or either one?
From the ones that I reviewed, there were a lot, circle the number, no comment.
Okay.
So that's all I'm getting to. If you think that your person's a 5, absolutely.
Write something on, it says, give me something that goes by.
Right. Because you're having a discussion with them. You know, Tom, you're doing an awesome job, you're a 5. And that means what?
Exactly.
So I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah.
so write it down. That's all we're asking. Not a huge narrative, just a few bullet points.
Okay.
Mr. Chief?
Hi. As somebody that's lived through those exact type of evaluations on both sides for 30-something years, I dislike the numbers, as you were saying, because, again, you're saying that 70% of our people are average, right at the get-go, they're just average. And again,
No, a 3 means that you're meeting expectations. That doesn't mean
and meeting expectations is average, because that's, you hire people to meet those
to
expectations.
do their job, correct.
If not, I like to get away from the numbers and just put the information in there, put the description in there. You know, under each category, yeah, this is what they're doing, they're meeting the needs, or they're exceeding the needs, but to give them a, you know, because you can give them a score of 80, and that, you might think that's great. Employees aren't gonna think that that's great.
Correct.
And so, it just, again, I've lived on both sides of it, and it's very, sometimes can be very subjective. I had a town administrator that, believe it or not, didn't get along with too well. But anyway, I did my job, and he had to find something, so for the, under communications, I forgot to tell him something once throughout the year, and I got a 2.
Yeah, no.
So it can be, you know, it can be very subjective depending on, so and again, what we do is, I sit down with every employee annually and have a conversation. Those employees who are underperforming, maybe we might sit down a couple of times a year. And if they don't perform, again, they don't pay rent, kick them out. So people that don't perform, they get moved down to a volunteer position, an auxiliary position, next, maybe, or they get moved out the door. So it's...
And I hear you, and I would hope that people would have enough common sense not to say, ugh,
The other part,
Paul raised his voice at me once, therefore he's a 2. I mean, I look at that and I'm thinking, now you're searching. Now you're searching for something, and to me, that would not be valid.
but the other part of it too, and again, historically, people don't get raises
Correct.
based on the reviews. And again, there's no, it's great, you've got a form, this says how we
Right.
review them. How is that tied to a pay increase for somebody that does
Mhm.
a good job, does their job, or does over and above? We have a wage classification program that has 10 steps, 9 categories.
Right.
But what, how do you get from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4? There's nothing in writing that says how you get there,
Right.
and nobody ever gets there.
Correct.
So,
I mean, and that's part of your growth plan. You know, if you want to be up, then you need to do up. You know, so if I'm
But-
here and I want to be,
but that's up to the leadership of the community
mhm,
to say, here's how you get there. We've got this whole plan,
right,
but here is how you get there. It's up to the department heads to then review, administer, and submit that information
right.
so that it can be approved, so that people can move up. Do you move up just because you've been here a year?
4,000 years,
Do you
yeah.
go up a year? Do you go up? I mean, if you do your job, if you're a 3, then I guess you should just move up. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or to move up, you have to do an exceptional job.
Correct.
We need those kind of parameters, because I can tell you, like I said, from working both sides of it, I can get a review, oh, great, thanks.
I know, and
What
they
does that
already
mean?
put it in the bottom of my drawer
What does it
because I
mean?
got a 2%
It-
or a
you know,
1%
and-
raise. Ooh.
And as a manager, I get it from my employees saying, oh, great, now I got, at one point in time, if you got 2 good reviews, and we do reviews every 6 months, if you got 2 good reviews, you got a raise. But then they stopped doing that.
And I think that that's something that we need to work for, because you have to tie the rating to the increase. Because if you're rating me a 5, and again, you know, people aren't supposed to talk, but they do. So if you're rating me a 5, and I get a 1.5% increase, and we have Sally over here, who, she's all right. She comes in, she doesn't really cause too many issues. She's a 3, she also gets a 1.5. It's like, really? Well, why am I busting when there's no difference? So maybe that's something that needs to be looked at as well. You know, that's potentially something else with finance that we need to talk to.
Yeah, we are talking tiny amounts of money for almost everyone.
Agreed.
That there's a difference. I have seen this work very poorly in larger organizations. We've got to be really careful I don't want anybody fighting over crumbs and creating bad morale over crumbs. Tying increases to merit when really the job is the job for lots of people, and there aren't necessarily, not all of these jobs are project. In fact, many of them might not be project-based, where you have an opportunity to excel. The work is the work, the duties are the duties. Really, we should be looking at, are we paying people decently for the kind of work we are asking them to do? And I will tell you, we pay pretty low. So merit increases, I think it's probably not gonna work except to lower morale. This is not the corporate world. And it's a very, morale and making the job a reasonable job to do are in some ways our primary concerns, I would think, as town leaders.
All right, so let me offer you this. Take a look at the evaluation. Cut down from 18 pages to not 18 pages. Look at the information in it. Make it work for you. If you feel that and I mean, the questions really are kind of sort of the same from last year. They're just blown out a little bit more. There's a little bit more white space. so that you can write. Take a look at them. Take the pieces that work for you. Don't take the pieces that don't work for you. And then we can regroup, because we're gonna do this again. Another quarter, 6 months, 9 months, at some time. We're all gonna meet again. So it's an opportunity to be like, dear God, what were you thinking and what were you on when you wrote those performance evaluations? Can we cut it down to 2 pages where we talk about winking, blinking, and nodding? Okay, I mean, you need to tell us. That's why from the very beginning, I said, you know, that we need your support, we need your input, we need your feedback. So guess what, folks? This is the first try out of the barn. Let's give it a go. Let's see what works, let's see what doesn't work, and then we'll come back next year, and we'll just try it again. Deal? Fair?
Just a thought, I think that this is a good starting point, that so everyone is not getting a 5. Everyone is thinking about it,
Yes.
so it's a clean start with.
Right.
You're meeting your goals is number, in your head, have that, meeting your goals is one number, and.
Right.
And
And
so
look at the criteria, and that's why part of it's long, because it has the breakout of what's a 1, what's a 2, what's a 3, what's a 4, what's a 5. The old one just had a sheet of paper, where it was your name, your boss's name, here's some questions, sign the bottom, thank you. So you don't really know what's a 3 versus what's a 5. Is it, hey, you know, June's my buddy and I really like her, so I'm gonna give her 5s, where Kate, maybe not so much, I'm gonna give her a 2. I mean, you want that justification to say, you're up or you're up. So that's all. So it's a good starting point to kick off with.
Patty, how many departments have more than several? Police, fire, DPW, and that's it? Who else has multiple?
Police don't do reviews. They're
You're all
contractual.
perfect.
It's not in their contract. So it's just, we have just communications, just one with Sharon. So.
So fire and DPW is the only 2?
Yep. Library has a few.
So this is a discussion for a pretty narrow audience.
Could be, but you know what? It's a discussion for all. So everyone hears the same message. And that's the whole point behind this, is that we're not just directing it at Molly or at Dennis. It's everybody hears the same exact message, so no one can walk out of here going, oh, I have no idea what she said. So it stops the rumorville in the hall. Oh, did you go to the meeting? No, I didn't go to the meeting. No, you hear what she said? Oh my God, I didn't know she said that. That's what this is just to level set and start. Hi.
So it's also for the selectmen. We have to do reviews of, you know, the police chief, the fire chief, the highway superintendent, the accountant. So it's also for us too.
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
Yeah, can I add to that? When we worked, I was at 2 different companies where this did work. And you give people 5 goals if they made 3. Paul mentioned meeting twice a year. We used to meet once a month and say, how you doing on your goals? It made communication.
Sure.
But you also, as a manager, will review based on what your folks accomplished under you. And everyone can have a goal, 1 person department, 10 people departments. Even if it involves trying something in another department for a week, or, you know, writing up a policy. Managers should be creative, and everyone should be able to have goals every year. It's not rocket science.
No, and again, it's just to encourage discussion, it's to encourage communication.
Yeah.
You don't want surprises, kind of like with June's budgets. You don't want surprises. You just want it to almost be an ongoing chat. All right, so off we go. We'll get those out in the mail. Okay, good luck. Let us know if you have any questions, comments. We're around, and we'll go with those. All right, you are up, Madam Chairwoman. I just like yelling that from across the parking lot. I think I've done that at the dump a few times.
Yeah, I know you have.
All right, I'm out.
So I think the theme for tonight is communication, good communication between the selectmen and the different departments, the boards, between different committees even. We've had a little bit of issue with that this year too. So I was just going to touch on the open meeting law, and if you are, am I supposed to do this?
You can, or you can just turn around and hit the down button like I was doing.
Oh, no, I might just ignore it. So if you are a multi-member board, commission, committee, or subcommittee within the town, established to serve a purpose or advise or make recommendations to the selectmen, you are subject to the open meeting law. The open meeting law, is this where I do this? So the open meeting law requires that minutes be created, approved in a timely manner, and a timely manner is considered to be within the next 3 meetings or 30 days from the date of the meeting, whichever is later. The Attorney General encourages minutes to be approved at the next meeting whenever possible. Existing minutes must be available within 10 days of a public request. Materials and other exhibits in an open meeting must also be made available to the public within 10 days of the request. So in order to keep the communication flowing between the Board of Selectmen and all of you, and between all of you, I'd like to make a couple of suggestions. The first is to take minutes of your meetings, approve and post on My Town Government within a month to help with communication between the boards, so they could even go to each other's website on My Town Government and take a look at it. You know, the conservation could look at what the Board of Health doing or whatever. So to help with communication between the boards and to ensure compliance with the open meeting law. The second suggestion is also to help with communication between the Board of Selectmen and yourselves. We have assigned selectmen liaisons to each department and committee, and have put liaison updates on every selectman's meeting agenda to share information with each other and the public. However, if any committee has concerns or requests or needs direction on administrative or procedural matters, we would encourage you to email all 3 of us, or you can email selectmen@townofberlin.com, and Mary will forward it to all of us. We will make a decision on your request as soon as possible and get back to you. So this will be helpful by not putting your liaison in a position of giving direction for something that should be a decision made by the whole board. We as a board are trying to be respectful of each other. One member of the selectmen has no authority. We only have authority as a board. So when you ask for your liaison's opinion, just so that you know, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the board's opinion. We're not ex officio members of your committees. When we attend your meetings, we are there to bring back information to the other 2 selectmen and not to act as a member of your committee. So the definition of a liaison is communication that facilitates a close working relationship between organizations, or a link of communication between 2 entities, communication between people or groups who work with each other. So that's it, and I hope this was helpful to you. I think all of the departments and commissions are doing a good job, and I want to see that continue. Let's keep the lines of communication open.
I think there's one more slide that just shows the, all the, liaisons. There you go.
There we are.
And again, this doesn't mean that you can only talk to Chris if you're on the hazard mitigation, or you can only talk to Chris if you're on the Board of Health. Admittedly, those 2 lovely ladies are around a little bit more during the day than I am. Almost fell over. That would be funny. Well, I got Chief Wall here, so if I'm gonna fall, it's the perfect opportunity.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, no? Well, we had this discussion once. So just don't just keep going by the columns. This really is just to give an equal representation of all of us to reach out to folks and to talk to folks. But honestly, if you need to get to any of us, we're all yours.
And if you don't feel comfortable with me, there's Lisa, there's Peg, and vice versa. But this is in case there's an issue of some kind that we sort of, you know, Mary could say, so such and such a group has such and such a problem.
Correct.
Do you want to go and investigate it? Whatever.
And I think I only have a couple slides left, and then we can wrap this up a little bit ahead of schedule.
Actually, while that's up there, I had one question. When we post a meeting on My Town Government, do you personally get an email?
If we're signed up to get notifications, yes.
So are you signed up to get notification
I'm signed up for,
for those committees that you're assigned to?
schools, yes. Board of Health, I'm not sure. I don't believe I am.
But that would be a nice feature of it.
Yes.
So that when a
That's
meeting
true.
was posted, it didn't go to the Board of Selectmen, but it went to the
Liaison.
liaisons.
Right.
I don't know if we can work on that with the town clerk, how we do that.
All you have to do is do it within My Town Government, am I correct?
Each individual has to go in and do it themselves.
Yeah.
So if Chris wants that notification, she can get it. If Peg wants that notification, she can get it. If I want that notification, I can get it.
Yeah.
If
Could I ask-
the public wants that notification,
They can get it, yeah.
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 So-
As many of them as want to sign up.
So can I ask the liaisons to do that?
Mhm.
Tomorrow or soon?
I already keep track of that.
But
Yes.
it sounds like the others don't.
I don't have a problem doing that.
Okay, if you
I
would,
just go
then-
through the calendar.
Mary watches all of that.
Mhm. No,
But
that's not a problem.
anybody can go
No,
on.
that's a good idea.
probably a good idea to
Yeah.
at least get notice of it.
I could use.
Because
two
every once in a
emails.
while, we'll change it. Even though it's been posted for a certain date, we have 48 hours before, somebody may be on traveling or something, we has to be there, so we'll move it to another night, and that way you would know about it. But if it goes to the Board of Selectmen, you may not know about it.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying that.
No, I think that's a good idea.
I just want to say from my standpoint as a newer chair of conservation, that it has been wonderful having one person that I've consistently talked to, so I don't have to re-explain every single time and then get to the question I have. It saves enormous amounts of time. I can say, hey, remember that thing we were talking about the other day? This now happened. Just wanted to let you know. Not to shut anybody else out, but it's just, this is my full-time unpaid job as opposed to my full-time paid job and my part-time paid job. So it's been enormously valuable and helpful for me and makes me feel more supported by the town and the selectmen.
Yeah, I mean, and really, truly, the only point behind this is that, you know, this is a lovely little chart. You can go to any of those. You know, but if you're comfy, you know, going to Mrs. Wysocki all the time, absolutely. And then during our meetings, she brings it back to us and says, hey, I was at the Conservation Committee and they talked about blah, 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 blah. And it gets down in the notes, so we know what's going on with you guys. So no, it's a great opportunity. Any other comments, questions about the liaison or open minutes, meeting law? We only have one more slide. Oh, so what's next? Well, as I said, we're not done. So expect to come back. I don't know when. We haven't decided that yet. We don't want to make it too many. We don't want to make it too few. So we'll probably try to find somewhere in the middle. There's lots of topics out there that a lot of folks talked about. Remember, you know, keep talking about your wins, keep talking about your challenges, keep talking about your mistakes. This truly is a judgment-free zone. We will learn from each other, we will grow from each other. You know, let's talk about potential personnel issues. Nothing specific, but if there's general questions that we have. If there's overdue items, June's having an issue with X, well, she can come back up, make an awesome presentation again, talk about those. Again, you know, and I apologize if I muddied the waters a little bit between the meeting, this meeting and current standing department head meeting. That one is much more informal. I would never infringe upon that, tell you to stop having that. Absolutely not. Again, this is just a way tonight so that everyone is level set, everyone hears the same message, because you know what, maybe you're working on this committee, and then maybe next year you're working on this committee. You get the whole information. We can talk about the goals of each department, Dennis, back to you. We can talk about bond ratings. So there's a ton of topics that are out there. So come to us, email us, track us down, find us at the general store, find us on Monday upstairs. But get to us. We want this to be very collaborative. We want this to be more proactive. We don't always want to be in reactive mode because we'll never get out of our own way. But the only way to do that is with all your help. And that is it. Questions, comments, feedback? What do you think?
Who's
Oh, we get questions in the back again.
This was not, unless I missed it at the beginning, this is just a question if anybody knows if there are any plans to do Christmas time in Berlin this year?
We don't know.
I don't believe.
Yeah,
that I work with for Home Day has talked about it in the past. Right now, they are meeting in Home Day.
yes, of course.
So I am not entirely sure what the intention is at this point.
Right, I have a specific library trustee reason why I asked, which is that we're going to be putting up our banner very soon saying we celebrate the 90th birthday of our building, which we're really happy about. And so we would like to have a birthday party, and December is actually the month that it opened 90 years ago. The new building, the only building really that was a purpose-built building for our library. And if there's going to be a Christmas time in Berlin, we feel like it would be best to have it on the same day. So you're saying there's maybe a 50%
Yeah,
chance?
like I said, I'm not sure because right now Home Day is all consuming.
Okay, yep.
But they do have an email address that I can give you.
Okay, that would be great. That would be great. Thanks. Thank you.
What we could do too is that we'll take my combination, my presentation, we'll stick in your slides, we'll make it one, and we can send those out to everybody as well. And one last question, being selfish. Who's in the pie eating contest this year? Show of hands. Who's in?
Chief Galvin, Chief Supervisor.
Chief.
So
So Chief, Dennis. What? Who's in it?
Hold that, I was never out.
And Principal Campbell.
You were volunteered.
Okay, you can be voluntold.
Exactly.
So again, thank you, appreciate it, folks. Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Please have some cookies.
Yes,